welcome to the Prophecy Club. Today, surprisingly, we are going to be positive. Today, we're going to be talking about how God does protect His own. And I know I tend to be a little negative. I tend to talk about how the judgment is coming and things like that, and that's all well and good, and that's what I'm supposed to do. But sometimes I forget to balance it out and to say that God is going to protect His own. I think the reason I do that is because most of the church tends to be positive only. So maybe like on an unconscious level, I'm trying to balance all of that positive with just getting the word of judgment out. But it is important that you know that God does provide and protect His own. And for this broadcast, and perhaps the next several broadcasts, I'm going to be giving you some specific examples from, well, mostly my life and also from the Bible of how God does protect. And I'm going to show you and prove to you that He has, will, and always will protect some of His own. When they do the right things, He is faithful to show up and to provide and to protect. So these are going to be broadcasts of encouragement, ever how many it winds up to be. God is no respecter of persons. Acts 10:34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, "Of a truth, I perceive that God is no respecter of persons." Now, the reason I think it's important to say that is because as I go through some of these examples of how God has provided for me or my family, I don't want you to be saying, "Oh, well, yeah, that's for Stan. That he was in the ministry. Oh, okay, that's the Prophecy Club, but he wouldn't do that for me." Oh, yes, He will. Now, you have to be walking with Him pretty close, but He doesn't think more of me than He does you. And He doesn't think any less of you than He does me or anyone else that He protects. The Bible is full of examples, but we have to be in the right place with Him. But my first point is, He is no respecter of persons. What God has done for one, He will do for another. What God has done for me, He will do for you. And He will provide and to protect. Let me give you an example. Prophecy Club started in June, matter of fact, June 3rd of 1993. And as a matter of fact, here in the next week or so, we're going to be celebrating our 25th anniversary of being on radio. And here's how it all got started, and specifically with this. So we were going along, I don't know, probably a month or so into Prophecy Club starting. And in those days, we made VHS tapes. And we had this guy in to talk and and we didn't have anything fancy. We just had a VCR recorder and we stuck it up under the nose of the speaker. And then we went and got another VCR and we started making copies. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know that you needed to have a device to boost the signal between one VCR machine and the other, or it would start getting grainy. We didn't know. We didn't know what we were doing, but we were nevertheless making copies. Well, after a while, it grew a little bit, and before long, we had, as I recall, when this happened, we had about 5, maybe 10 VCR machines. Now, here's the way it worked. We put in the master videotape, which is just a regular VHS tape, and then we put in 10 other tapes, and we had them all wired together, and we probably were not making very good copies, but we were making copies. And this one guy calls, heard us on the radio, wanted to come by and pick up a videotape, VHS, and rang the doorbell, came in, and he saw those 10 VCRs sitting over there on the table in our living room. That's how it all got started. And he says to me, let me back up. I'm about to mess up my story. I think Prophecy Club had probably been going about 30 to 60 days. And here's what I had been doing. I'd been saying, okay, I'm going to work Prophecy Club for about 3 weeks of the month, and then I'm going to go out for about 1 week a month. I'm going to work really, really hard. I'm going to start my appointments early. I'm going to stay late. I'm going to see a lot of people. I'm going to be really enthusiastic. Did all my sales stuff. Okay. At the time, I was selling enrollments into this public speaking course, and I did that for 13 years, and I was good in. Let me just say, this is all the hand of the Lord. I didn't know, I didn't know it at the time, but it was all the hand of the Lord, actually all preparing me for having a thick skin to do what I now do. But I was always good in sales. Again, it's all the blessings of God. I didn't know at the time. So I thought I was a really good salesperson, and I had a lot of training, a lot of good training. I was in door-to-door sales for 6 years before I got into this public speaking, selling this stuff. And I had a lot of good sales training and the door-to-door stuff. And then part of what I was teaching was a sales course, for crying out. As a matter of fact, the world's best sales course, in my opinion. So, yeah, I was good naturally, blessings of God, plus I had a lot of really good training. So that was my plan. So I would go out for a whole week, and I would really be enthusiastic. I'd use all my sales skills, and I was going to make enough sales in 1 week to basically take off the other 3 weeks and just work Prophecy Club. Well, it worked okay for the first month, but at the end of the second month, I had a lesson to learn. And that is, and I want you to hear this today, I want you to know that our God will protect and He will provide. And I believe there's some people listening to that need to hear that today. So I did not know at that time that God would provide. So I remember that I went out this particular week, and I started early. I gave enthusiastic presentations. I used all of my sales closes, all of my sales examples, and I made lots of sales calls. And normally I would have had a month's worth of sales in a week. Only this week I had a lesson to learn. So now, I can remember it. I can remember it like I was there. It was Friday night, and it was probably about 6 o'clock, and I was driving home. I was living in eastern Kansas. I think at the time I was filling a course in, I think it was St. Joseph. And at the time I lived either in Topeka or Lawrence, but I was driving home, and I remember looking at the sun. I was having to stare right in the sun driving home. And I had a talk with God. Now, I know at this point He is about to move from being a God I serve kind of part-time to where He's about to become my boss. And I didn't actually, at the time, know God near what I do now and nowhere close to what I really needed to know Him then. And so I didn't talk real reverent, okay? I'm just telling you the truth, okay? I didn't talk real reverent to God. So here's what I said. I said, God, now you know that I have started early and I've stayed late and I've made lots of sales calls, given lots of presentations. I've been enthusiastic. I've used all of my sales skills. And you know that I can't believe this, but I have made it to the end of the week. Not only do I have low sales, I have no sales. Now, for me, going a week with no sales, unheard of. Unheard of even when I'm just kind of walking. But this particular week I was running in terms of effort and everything, okay? And I said, so here it is. It's Friday night. And as you know, I need $2,000 by Monday to pay that mortgage and to pay our bills. And I hit the steering wheel. I did. I'm sorry. It's not the way to talk to God. I would never talk to Him like that now, but I didn't know that. I was just young and stupid. So I hit the steering wheel and I said, and I'm in trouble because of you and that prophecy club. And I'm sorry. You don't talk to God that way. I know that. I understand that. But look, I'm just telling you. I was young and stupid and didn't know what I was doing. I hit the steering wheel. I said, so you know I'm in trouble because of you and that prophecy club. If I hadn't have been working so hard in that prophecy club, if I'd have been out selling, I wouldn't be in this jam. So here I am. You know I need $2,000 by Monday. And I said, so here's the way it is. I said, if you want me to keep going in this prophecy club, then there's no other way out of this. There's no other way to say this. I need $2,000 by Monday, or I'm going to have to park that prophecy club on the back burner for a while. I'm going to have to throw all of my time and my effort back into sales so that I can pay my bills. I said, I've got a mortgage. I've got a family. I said, this is not a joke. I said, I've got to have $2,000 by Monday. So send me $2,000 by Monday in Jesus' name. Now, if there was a prayer that I didn't think would make it through the roof of that car, it was that prayer. So here's what happened. So I get home, and it's now about 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, and of course I'm working on Prophecy Club stuff. I'm in my office, I'm typing up the newsletter, and the doorbell rings. This guy comes by. Leslie tells me some guy called, and he wants to stop by and pick up a VHS tape. So he walks in, he sees those stacks of VCRs, and he says to me, "You guys need an alarm." Yes. But need to and can do are a long way off. He said, "I'll tell you what, I put in alarms part-time. I'll put you an alarm for free." I said, "Well, thank you. That would be wonderful." So now, again, this is Friday night. So Saturday afternoon, he comes and he puts in the alarm. And as he's putting in the alarm, he sticks his head around the corner into my office, and he hands me 5 $100 crisp dollar bills. 5 $100 bills. And he says, "I'm impressed with the Lord to make a sizable donation to your ministry." And he gives me that money. I said, "Well, praise God, just do what God is telling you to do." I mean, you have to understand, at this point, I was a salesperson. People don't give salespersons money. But you see, God was moving me. He was changing me from being a salesperson to being a minister. He was showing me, Stan, you can go out and you can make all the sales calls you want to. You can be enthusiastic and use all of your sales training you want to. But when I decide you're not going to make any sales, you're not going to make any sales. And when I decide I'm going to provide for you, now some of you need to hear this. I hope you're hearing me. This is positive coming from Prophecy Club. This is positive. You need to hear that, yes, God is going to be there to provide and to protect. I hope you're hearing me. But again, the prayer was I needed $2,000 by Monday, or I'm going to have to park this Prophecy Club stuff. Well, again, that's Saturday. Yeah, I think maybe that was Saturday morning. Been 25 years now. Then Saturday afternoon, the phone rang, and I went running through the house because this was the yellow Prophecy Club phone. Somebody was calling the Prophecy Club. I might be able to get to talk about prophecy. Oh, how wonderful. So I went running through the house. I ran over. I picked up that phone receiver to that yellow phone. Prophecy Club.
We'll be right back after this message.
The recordings discussed on the Prophecy Club are typically offered for a gift of $30 per disc or title, a double disc for $45 or a triple disc for $65. If there a way that you could watch any one of our DVDs for 50 cents to $1, you probably want to know about it, right? Well, go visit watchprophecyclub.com, where you can watch over 160 Prophecy Club titles for an introductory monthly recurring subscription of just $20 a month, or a yearly subscription for $200. The early $200 subscription is the best deal because it locks in your rate against increases in monthly subscriptions. That's watchprophecyclub.com. You'll love the format. It's easy to watch, and the quality is great. Watchprophecyclub.com. Watchprophecyclub.com. Go check it out today.
And now, back to the program.
Oh, how wonderful. So I went running through the house. I ran over. I picked up that phone receiver to that yellow phone, Prophecy Club, and there was this guy that had been to one of our meetings. He says to me, "I'm impressed of the Lord to make a sizable donation to the Prophecy Club." I said, "Well, that's wonderful. Praise God. Just do what he tells you to do." And then I said, "So how much would the donation be?" He said, $1,500. At the time, it did not dawn on me. Again, I'm sorry. I was just too stupid to know and understand that God was capable of doing that. You see, I'd never had anybody give me money. I'd always had to chisel it out of their pocket, you see. So this was something new. But I was learning that God can provide. He needed to show me that. You see, I didn't have low sales. I had no sales. Sunday evening, this guy comes over Sunday evening, and he hands us a check for $1,500. And we looked down at the check, and it wasn't made payable to Prophecy Club. He made it payable to me personally. So here we go. By Monday morning, as requested, I had $2,000 to pay my bills. I remember I asked one of our speakers, I said, so how do you know when it's time to move from the old job to the new job? I remember the answer. I remember it as clear as if it was yesterday. He said, well, it's like this, brother. He said, when God begins to pinch off the finances off of the old and begins to open up the finances into the new, you make the step. Well, see, that was the first step. That was the day that we got an alarm in our house, $500 cash, and a check for $1,500, and we paid our bills. Now, I say this because I want to say one thing to you. Yes, I know Prophecy Club brings some pretty harsh, pretty direct things sometimes. But I want you to know that our God is a God that provides and protects. And I'm going to say to you as we go through this, if your heart is right, and you can get your heart right before God, if your heart is right before God, then you honestly do not have to worry about the future and the things that are coming, because God is going to be there to provide and to protect, okay? Now, let me give you another example. You remember the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You have to understand that it is up to God whether he's going to protect us or not. We don't have that choice. We don't have a guarantee that he's going to protect us. What we do have is if we are in the right place, then he's going to take care of us, and that might not mean protection. That might mean protection. And here's the right attitude for us to have, the attitude that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had. Now, let's go to Daniel 3, verse 15. Now, you remember the story. So, King Nebuchadnezzar builds this image. He calls all of the people into the area to the dedication of his big golden image. Then, as they're standing in front of this image, this crier stands up, and he says, everybody, when you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, all kinds of music, you are commanded to fall down and worship the image. Now, all of the people did, except Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And, of course, some of the accusers of the brethren. Look, I'm just trying to be funny, okay? I love my Democrats. Might not make it to heaven too good, but if you support that abortion, other things like that, you might be in trouble. But anyway, so certain of the people, the accusers, the Chaldeans, went to King Nebuchadnezzar. And they said, hey, did you or did you not say everybody's supposed to fall down and worship the golden image you set up when they hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music? He said, true. He said, well, I just want to let you know, these three Jews, they're not doing it. So he pulls these Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in front of him. And he says, now, look, if you be ready at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, and dulcimer, and all kinds of music, if you fall down and worship the image that I have set up, well, but if not, you're going to be cast the same hour into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And who is that God that would deliver you out of my hands? Now, here's the point. This is the correct answer. This is where we've got to be should we find ourselves in trouble with whatever it is in the future. And I'm talking about someone trying to get you to deny Jesus. Someone trying to get you to take that mark, okay? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said unto the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this matter. Now, here's the way we would say it today. We have actually carefully thought this through, and we have made our decision. We don't need to make a phone call to someone else. This is our final decision. We don't need to send a landline. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is quite capable of delivering us from the burning fiery furnace and out of your hand, O king. But if he doesn't, Be it known unto thee, O king, we're still not going to serve your gods, bub. We're not going to do it. We are not going to serve your gods. We're not going to worship the golden image you set up. Sorry, we're not trying to offend you, but we serve another God. We're not going to do it. Bible says Nebuchadnezzar became full of fury, and the form of his visage changed. He was furious, probably as his veins were sticking out. His face was red and angry with fire. So he commanded them to heat the furnace. Then he commanded up the most strongest people in his army to cast Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They fell down into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. The king stands up, shocked, and he says, whoa. Wait a minute. I thought we cast 3 men bound into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. And they said, true, O king. He said, then you want to tell me how come I see 4 men loose walking in the midst of the burning fiery furnace, and one looks like a son of God? So Nebuchadnezzar gets up off of his throne. He goes over by the burning fiery furnace, and he says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come forth and come hither. So they came out of the fire. Now, you see, brothers and sisters, that's where we need to be. We need to be saying, I'm not going to serve your God. I'm not going to take that mark. Whatever it is, I'm not going to disobey my God. Now, our God is quite capable of taking care of us, providing for us, but we're not trying to be offensive. We're not trying to rub salt in your face or anything here, but we're not going to serve your gods. And I guess you're going to do what you're going to do, but we're not going to serve them. And you try to be kind, you try to be polite. And as a result, what happened here was the princes, the governors, the captains, the king's counselors all saw these men, whose bodies the fire had no power. There was not a hair of their head singed, coats changed, not even the smell of fire passed on them. Let me give you another example. So I guess it was about the second or third speaker Prophecy Club had way back in 1993 or 4, someplace in there. And this guy was over in Australia. He was a missionary. He used to be in the army. He said over there, he says, if you're carrying Bibles, you're going out and preaching the Word of God, he said you have to be former military, and he says you walk around as if you are a military officer. He says, and you walk around armed all the time. He said, if you don't, you're dead. He said, so I was walking across this clearing, backpack full of Bibles, and I had my machine gun in my hand. And he said, all of a sudden, I saw these 4 guys, these 4 Muslims, and they popped up out of nowhere. They've got their AK-47s. They got them leveled on me, and it's only about 15 or 20 feet away. He said, I see him pull the trigger. I see the muzzle flashes. He says, I started to jump down behind this little bitty bush. He said, but at the same time, I knew I was already dead. There's no sense in even trying to jump behind that bush. He says, I looked up, I saw the muzzle flashes, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. I'm hearing the explosions. I'm hearing, he says, I'm hearing the bullets flying past my ear. Then I realized none of them are hitting me. He says, then all of a sudden, I realized that God was protecting me. All of a sudden, this boldness, this holy boldness came over me. He said, instead of jumping down behind that little bush, he says, all of a sudden I stood up. I stood up straight before him because I knew that God was protecting me. I knew that none of those bullets were going to hit me. He said, all of a sudden I felt this confidence, this holy boldness. He said, and I started walking straight toward their AK-47s. The bullets were firing. The muzzle flashes from all 4 of these guys were going off. I could hear. I could see the muzzle flash. He says, I knew I was supposed to be dead. He said, but I just kept walking straight toward them. They get done with that particular magazine. They'd throw in another one, and all 4 of them are firing. He says they must have fired off 2 different magazines, each one of them, before I got there. And he said, by the time I got there, he said, when I'm 2 feet away, they just threw their guns down and run off screaming. That's our God. Now, I know sometimes Prophecy Club, I bring you harsh information. I know that I try to warn you, okay? I don't want to get you scared. I don't want to do that. I want to get you prepared, brothers and sisters. And that's why I'm bringing this to you today. I want to let you know that I'm nothing special. God provided me. He provided, and I'm going to tell you a lot of other examples here over the next few broadcasts. I want you to know that if you're in the will of God, that's another thing. People will email me, hey, where do you think I ought to go? My wife and I are thinking about moving. Where do you think, where's the best place to survive? Where's the best place to live as all this stuff starts coming down? Here's the correct answer. In the will of God. See, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in the will of God. I was in the will of God because God was starting the Prophecy Club. Now, let me also say, if you're hanging on to some things in your life that you need to be letting go of, you got to trust God. And since we're talking about it, you got to trust God with your finances too. The people that say, I don't have the money to give, they never have the money to give. And they're always struggling. But it's the people that say, no, I believe I heard God. I believe you nudged my heart, and I'm going to give. Now, I will tell you from experience, God does not necessarily feel obligated to cover a hot check. So you got to make sure that the check's not hot. But if you'll follow when he tells you to give, he will raise you up. Look, God is the one, like Daniel said, blessed be the God of heaven forever and ever. For he giveth wisdom and might. He changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings. He setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom to the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. He will take care of you, brothers and sisters. Now let me tell you about Prophecy Club. This is summertime. Summertime always a real bad time for Prophecy Club, but we're having a particularly tough summer. I believe that many of you have been blessed by God. And if you believe God has blessed you, and if you'd like him to bless you some more, would you prayerfully consider remembering us when it comes time for your giving? Just simply pray and say, Lord, I love you. This Prophecy Club has been a benefit to me. Thank you very much. What would you have me to give Prophecy Club? And then whatever he lays on your heart, it's going to be okay. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. We just launched WatchProphecyClub.com. You can now watch 160 Prophecy Club recordings and soon over 300 without interruption. Most people would agree 300 titles, normally $30 each. A gift of $100 a month would be reasonable. $50 a pretty good deal, but the introductory rate for a limited time is just $20, recurring monthly subscription. A one-year subscription is a gift of $200. There's no contract. You can cancel anytime you want to, and you get the first 3 days free just to check it out. The best deal is a yearly subscription that'll lock in your rate for a year even when we raise the rates. WatchProphecyClub.com. Go check it out. WatchProphecyClub.com. Dr. Bree Keaton just made a brand new DVD, and I love it. It's called Is Trump or Patrick Henry? Now, it's not a political talk. Bree's mother was a descendant of the patriot Patrick Henry. She reveals shocking, never released, private family records, bloodlines, and gives you the true story of how God used Patrick Henry to save America. She helped me to see more clearly where we are and where we're going because most of history has already repeated itself. I promise you will like this DVD. Is Trump our Patrick Henry? ProphecyClub.com.